All right, good afternoon, everybody. It is Wednesday, July 16th at 3:02 p.m., calling to order the 15th meeting of the 911 Services Enterprise. So welcome. First up is any discussion and potentially the approval of the draft minutes from June 18th. Everybody have a chance to look at that.
Can
Any
everyone hear me
discussion?
now? Everyone hear
Hello.
me? Oh, okay, there we go. I'd like to make a motion to have the minutes from the June 18th meeting um, approved.
Thank you, Amy.
Mhm.
Second.
Second, was that Lynn?
Yes, it was.
Thank you. Any other discussion, corrections? Any? All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, draft minutes from June 18th are approved. Thank you. Next up, public comments. Public comments are limited to up to 15 minutes total. Each member of the public may speak for up to 3 on any topic relevant to the purposes of the enterprise. If any member of the public would like to speak, please indicate so now by raising your hand in Zoom to be called upon. After we address any raised hands in Zoom, we will then call for any additional comments from members of the public who may have dialed in or are unable to raise their hands in Zoom. Any member of the public like to make a comment? Seeing no raised hands, is there anybody, if you would like to unmute and give your name to be addressed, if you were unable to raise your hand? Seeing and hearing none, public comment is closed. All right, next up, everybody's favorite, the bylaws. So I did get through Sage 2 comments from Matt, thank you. The first one is regarding section 2.3, conflict of interest. So in our bylaws, we did mention that the code of conduct policy, which is something we've already passed, would be signed by all members. Obviously we didn't have approved bylaws at the time, so the current form of the code of conduct only has signature blocks for the chair and vice chair as approvals of the policy. So if this is still a desire, we'll just need to add signature blocks for everybody else, whether that's a one-off per person that they sign as people come and go from the board, or a place for all 5 people. Just a matter of adding that signature if that is still a desire of this board.
I think that personally, I think a signature for everybody would be best. I make code of conduct policy.
Okay. Easy enough to do unless Kirsten has anything to add to that, but I think that's easy peasy. And then the next comment, section 2.5, attendance. So if a board member has more than 3 consecutive absences, the chair, in his or her discretion, and as may be delegated to the vice chair, may report such circumstances to the board member's appointing authority. So Matt's comment is, should this be an or? Yes, Matt, would you like to speak to that?
Oh, no, it sounds like you got it covered, actually. Just the rest of what I wrote in that comment, if this will blow up, but technically it probably should be or, but if that means not adopting the bylaws today, it doesn't really matter all that much.
Again, Kirsten, keep me honest here. I don't think that is, substantial enough that we wouldn't be able to vote on the bylaws either way. My personal feeling was I thought and was the appropriate one, leaving the onus and the primary responsibility on the chair unless and until something was delegated to the vice chair, but I'm fine either way. Thoughts from anybody else on language preference? Matt, do you feel strongly? Should this be or?
I don't have a strong stand on it. If the consensus is to leave it as is, I have no objection to that.
I have no objection either way, to be honest. I think both would fit. Guess that's a matter of preference.
I think either works, but I do think or works a little better.
Okay. Apologize, I'm trying to double duty here. Jolene from the state apparently didn't get the invite, so I'm trying to send that to her. So we can change that to or.
Michael, do you want one of us to send it to her?
I think I just sent it to her, but maybe
Okay.
hit her up and make sure she got it.
Okay.
All right, and with that change to or, I think unless, is there any other comment, thoughts, changes? Barring that, are there any motions to adopt these bylaws with that one change from last meeting?
So moved.
Thank you, Matt. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Andrew. Last chance for discussion, thoughts, comments? All right, with that, all those in favor of these bylaws, say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed, nay? Bylaws are passed. Excellent. With that, couple items in the bylaws that I'd like to address. The first is, do we want to appoint a financial secretary? Now that we have official bylaws, and that position is official. Kirsten, can we do that? Or does that need to be announced ahead of time?
Let me see what it says here. Yeah, we should probably announce that one ahead of time.
Okay, so Sage, for the agenda for our next meeting, appointment of a financial secretary and appointment of a budget development committee.
Understood. I'll put those on the agenda.
Thank you very much. Along with that, comes back to a previous question for Kirsten. How will that work as far as a budget development committee if there are, multiple board members? What does that look like as far as us being able to talk to each other? Is that a separate announced open meeting on Zoom? What does that look like? If you can guide us on that one at our next meeting.
Yeah, I will definitely follow up on that one. We have another group that is asking a similar question, so it's been a discussion.
Thank you very much. All right, yay, we have bylaws. All right, next up, discussion about priorities, fundings, budget, and potential draft budget presentation. Lynn, Sage said you sent her something. Did you want to get us started? I'll
Sure.
stop sharing if you have
Sure.
something you want to share.
Let me get that open here. And while it's opening here, I thought first, so I'm going to qualify this right at the get-go. Draft, it's a draft. So any of the identified programs in here or anything, just based off of some previous conversation in my recollection. So I know there's certain to be a lot of change in here. And I will share, let's see, where was the share? Share. Okay. think I'm there. All right, can y'all see this okay, and is it large enough?
Works for me. Might be able to make it a little bigger.
A little bigger? Is that better? Any more?
Looks good to me. Unless
All right.
anything else.
All right, so let me just tell you the approach that I took, so you know where all of this comes from. Not really having any sort of explicit guidelines as to what has to go in here and how it works. I did participate on the 988 board previously, and where they had to do a similar function and generate some documents, and in particular, then eventually the document that went over to the PUC identifying their budget. So I went back to their latest documents I could find to see what they had pulled together, what they incorporated for line items into the budget for purposes of sharing with the commission and setting the fee and the additional cents that would need to go into the state fee. So this isn't intended to necessarily be a working budget at this point that you would kind of keep all your accounting in detail from, but just as an initial budget, high-level budget, to make sure that we have enough information and have determined enough to draft the document that we would need to get over to the PUC. So I looked up those documents, reviewed them. I had a meeting with Daryl and Jennifer to get some input from them and ask some questions there. I went back to the legislation that got the bill that got approved to see what was already allocated for funding. And what I haven't done yet is I did not go back into the long bill yet to see kind of if what was stated for some of the allocated monies, how it was represented in the long budget, and if those amounts exactly matched. But all of that can be shored up after the fact. So the framework here, and I have a number of comments in here and questions, it's very similar, but not exact, because there's things that don't apply to us from the 988 side. But I put in the categories of items that I felt like might be relevant to what we would be looking at and what we would be potentially funding this year. So I divided it up into a few sections here. The estimated beginning balance, which of course we don't have one yet. Expenses, so this is more general expenses, and then these would be expenses from the programs where we actually kind of allocate out the money to different programs. So I just called it programs, certainly open to any sort of relabeling, adding any additional line items, subtracting some line items. So with that, let me just walk through a couple of things. So the estimated beginning balance, and these are a couple of things I want to double check. I thought that, I'm going to start here. The fee gets set for the calendar year. Of course, the budget and the state budget runs on a fiscal year cycle that is not the same as a calendar year, which is always interesting. And we can set our budget, I guess, whatever works best for us. We can probably try and time it with 988 did this, time it with the state fiscal cycle, and they did an initial actual 18-month budget and projection. We can leave it as a 12-month, and then Daryl suggested, or we can represent multiple things here, but Daryl suggested that maybe for 2026, that we would actually only really be looking at 8 months, because we're not going to realize any of the fee revenues until March. So, which doesn't make it 8 months. That's January, February, March. That would be 10 months, wouldn't it? Either way, we just kind of need to decide how we want to represent this here. So I did too. I represented a 12-month, so that would be January through December, and an 8-month. I thought that we had the opportunity to have revenues come in from other ways other than just the 911 fee. And that's why this grants and gifts line is in here. I think we need to double check and see if that's true, and if so, kind of how it's labeled. And there also could potentially, as we continue to do these year over year, be a balance from the prior year. We don't have a balance from the prior year or anything to carry over because we haven't started collecting anything. So that made our beginning balance, and will be for starting in January, will be 0. Then the general expense lines that were covered, this was covered in the 9881. There's maybe some that aren't appropriate to us. Personal services. So what was considered, in my mind and my estimate in this category, was Attorney General's office, PUC, any HR support, any OIT support, and Dora generally, because Dora's going to have to be the one dealing with us on budgets and contracts and payments and things like that going in and out. So there will be a Dora component here. Right now, what was in the legislation for 2024 only totaled about I want to say 122 or 100, might have been $170,000 for the 24-25 fiscal year. But again, that didn't really include anything outside of the AG and the PUC. So I just put in for now $250,000. Again, these amounts can be adjusted, and I can certainly have more conversation with Daryl was going to find and put me in touch with the person from the from Dora who deals with their budgeting side, so we can have some real conversations about what these amounts might really need to be.
Again, Daryl does have his hand up.
Oh, does he? Okay, I'm sorry. Oh, there he is.
No problem. Yeah, so this is very relevant because I literally just got off another call with the Dora budget officer and the PUC budget officer. Lynn, that's still Harris Adams, in case you're curious.
Yeah.
And first of all, they told me that they will not be charging anything in your first year of revenue. So
okay.
I think for 2026, you probably don't need to budget anything for the PUC or for Dora. For OIT, I was told that even though OIT charges us per email address that's assigned, that will get allocated through the PUC's budget, and it will not be charged to the enterprise because it's just not worth the effort.
Okay.
For the PUC staff time, that's very minimal. We're basically talking about Sage's time and taking care of the minutes, posting the agendas, posting the videos of the meetings. And if it doesn't raise over a certain percentage of her time during the week, then they won't bother to charge you for that either. One of the questions that came up is whether the enterprise may wish to hire a person, which would essentially mean the PUC hiring someone to work for the enterprise and then charge the enterprise for that cost. And I know you guys have not had that discussion at all yet, and you've had other talks about how projects could be managed that wouldn't include hiring a program manager directly. So I told them that there was no plan for that at this time. If that changes, then that might change this calculation. I do think that it would probably be a good idea for you guys to budget something for indirect costs from Dora, just in case something comes up. But I don't think that you need to, I think 250,000 is probably too high at this point. Probably if you wanted to just create a cushion there, I would say maybe 100,000 would probably be enough for the first year. And then after the first year, we'll have a better idea of what they might want to charge you further down, because they said for the first year, they just wait to see what the costs actually are.
Okay. Well, Daryl, in your conversation with Harris, was when you said 0 for the first year, was that first calendar year or fiscal year?
So they understand that you guys are on a calendar year instead of a fiscal year. And because you're not going to start receiving money until almost the end of the fiscal year, I think we're probably talking about not, they wouldn't start charging you until the middle of 2026 when the 2026, 2027 fiscal year starts. But don't hold me to that.
Okay. So do others have any other comments on the personal services piece?
I think that's great. That's fabulous news, Daryl. Thank you. Yeah, I would say 100, maybe 150 if we're worried about it, but yeah, 250 seems a bit high to me as well. The fiscal note, you're right, was 122, but then yeah, we're a year behind that, and I'd be curious what that ends up being, especially with the last thing you said, Daryl, with them potentially starting fiscal year kind of mid calendar 2026. That is during where this budget will be. So I wouldn't want to go under 100. I was thinking 150. Yes, Matt.
This dialogue answered my questions for that initial questions for that line item. I'm wondering if, I guess my initial reaction was 100 might even be too high based on what Daryl was describing. I'm fine at 100 or less. Or consensus, what do other folks think?
Kirsten?
Hi, I'm sorry. I was actually chatting with my supervisor about this question about the AG cost. Did Daryl address who exactly pays for the AG cost, or do I still need to follow up on that?
So I did receive some information on that I'm not real comfortable. Well, I won't say I'm not comfortable. I'm just not entirely confident in, because it sounded like the AG cost may get charged to Dora and Dora pays it. But there's also a possibility they may find a way to charge it to the enterprise. So if you have better information than that, because that's not very helpful, if you've got better information than that, it'd be welcome.
Yes, I'm elevating it a little higher. Our section does not know, but I'm contacting our first in the section to see if he knows.
Yeah, and I did put down here, I'm sorry, Kirsten. Oh, it's 107,000. I want to say in the bill this year's appropriation. So I'm assuming that went directly into the AG side budget on the long bill was about 34 or 37,000. So I don't know if that would be a similar amount for next year, if how they did it this year is an indicator of how they would do it next year.
Okay, I'll add that to my question too before I send the email.
Okay.
If I may, Lynn, you're saying that you found that they specified
So
cost
for
related to the enterprise in the AG section of the long bill?
no, I didn't look at the long bill yet to try and do a mapping, because that can be an interesting exercise too, because sometimes the long bill doesn't detail out the same way as sometimes there's footnotes. So I hadn't looked there yet, but in the actual bill that got signed itself, in the appropriations section of the bill, it had roughly 37,000 allocated for legal, and the remainder 60 some thousand or whatever, 71,000 for the PUC. And so, yeah, and that was for fiscal year
38,406.
24-25.
With respect to the enterprise.
Correct. Directly.
Specifically.
Yes.
Specifically. Okay, thank you.
Yes.
Well, then it may be that 100 is not quite enough.
The fiscal note under the bill 24,139 for 24-25, they were allocating a total of 122,670. So that's why my thought was in that at least 1 to 150, but obviously the DORA being lenient on us this first year could very much impact that. But my worry is with our rate setting and our year being more calendar based and the states being the fiscal halfway through, I would hate for us to plan too little and not have it, rather than plan a little too much and have it to roll over into some other program later. Yes, Matt.
I agree with that. I also think that it's reasonable for the enterprise to pay its way, even though it's in the initial year, because the state is and will continue to be hurting financially with respect to budget shortfalls. So as a board member, I'm grateful for the offers of no charges, but I also understand that there's some financial issues with the state and would be okay paying.
Okay, so if we did 150, and if there is kind of an overrun, I mean, if we have leftover money there, I mean, I don't think it'd be a significant amount, and it could then just go into your balance and decrease what you need for the following year too. So I know we don't want to overrun, but maybe it's safer to just put it at 150.
That's my opinion. I especially this first year when we don't know what we don't know. Yes, Daryl.
I was basically going to make the same comment that Lynn just did. The consequences of over budgeting on this are that you will have extra money left over at the end of the year, which will reduce how much you need to raise the next year, and or it provides the initial matching fund balance that you may want to have just in case a federal grant comes up that requires matching funds.
Yeah, excellent point.
Okay, so I am going to change this one.
Another reason
that's
why
one more.
the kind of the grant options directly from us, those can act as that buffer, right? Where we can set it up as, we'll have an ever shifting pool of money for grants, and that's how we can kind of balance it out on the bottom end.
Okay. I did not, are we good then with personal services? And again, we can adjust if there, if Kirsten comes back and there's something significantly different, but within this, it would include at least that 37,000 or so that was in there for the AG's office. So. I did not foresee contractor costs. This is a very real thing in 988. I included in here in case there was some thought, but I couldn't think of anything off the top of my head.
I think the only thing we've talked about in the past, again, assuming we follow this path with the 911 Resource Center, was having an available pool to assist with any expenses over and above what was planned. So I think it wouldn't be a bad idea to put something there as an eventuality, but that could also be program reserves. That could be.
Yeah, that's where, just so you know, that is where I anticipated that. And I basically did a 10%. I don't know why, because I don't know if it's maybe because I'm used to overruns on my house remodeling and everything else like that. I'm like 10%. Sounded like a good amount. I think Daryl mentioned too, you know, we can always go a direction with it where we, through DORA personnel, and do some hiring here and use some of this in order to cover some of that expense as well. What I'm not as certain about, and I'm not an accountant because I'm not an accountant, is if we have significant underruns in certain categories, can we shift money? And and if you can, but is there any restrictions between using funds that were budgeted for one category in another category? I do not know that.
I think if we were to do that, we'd have to do a supplemental budget. That's my understanding.
Okay.
Yeah, I think as long as we're open about it and amend the budget. Yes, Matt.
Okay.
If the budget is adopted in total, that's the term, in total, then, well, this applies to local government anyway. Then you're not limited by the dollar amount in any one line item. You are limited by the total amount in your total expenditures line if you adopt in total.
Got it.
And that enables you to then sort of modify how you spend. So for example, for our 911 authorities, our METSA, we adopt in total. If we need to go 1 penny over the total expenditures, then we would have to file an amended budget. But so long as we can come in under budget in one line item and use that revenue towards another line item as needed, we're okay.
Okay.
I don't
And
know
we
how
can-
that applies to the enterprise.
Yeah, and I will tell you from past experiences, and it was not 988, it was something completely different. Sometimes the answers I got on those kinds of things from state treasury was different than the answer I got from DORA budgeting, you know, so and it was involved in enterprise kind of situation too. So, but we can run down that kind of thing, but I think it's a really good point to, as a safeguard, to when we get there, to approve the budget in total, as you say, to the extent that will create any flexibility. Okay, especially this first year, since we're kind of really just projecting. So I had an operating expense of $10,000 that really, and I thought I saw an agenda item on here about travel and some things like that. Again, an amount I pulled out of the air, but mainly intended to cover those kinds of miscellaneous expenses. And I did not, in my head anyways, kind of like contractor costs, have any thought about indirect costs. So I put in A at this point, but if anybody has anything they believe needs to go in there, we can talk about that. I tried to put in formulas where I could so that things just recalculate, but at some point they don't exactly recalculate, because you'll see down here I'm not at 2.4, I'm at 2.3. Let me start this next category, the programs, by saying a couple of things. One, I base this off of our conversation of us thinking that we would target 3 cents, and there's $800,000 for every penny. So that gave us $2.4 million. And then here's kind of how I backed into it. I thought I had better notes on this than I really had. So this is where I really need some input, but we definitely had talked about funding a full-time FTE with the Resource Center board. Daryl and I had a conversation about is a full-time person enough? What if we start throwing more things in there that we'd like them to do in terms of maybe the program management of a particular other area that's getting covered or anything else? I'm trying to remember, Daryl, the amount you gave me, but honestly, I upped it. I upped it a bit to $200,000 just to have enough space in there to really cover not just the resource center board person running as is and what they do today, but anything else we might throw at them. We talked about and this is where I really need you all to remind me here. What I recall was GIS, statewide GIS, and in my conversations with Daryl, I labeled it statewide GIS statewide study. And because I know there is already GIS work underway at OIT, and Daryl was explaining that to me. So it wasn't totally clear to me what was left within this category that still needed funding. And Daryl, chime in here, but you had talked about potentially there are a number of the local authorities, there's still work to be done on their side in order to work with their data and the GIS data to complete, kind of a statewide GIS capability. So that was one of the categories. We can talk about how these are labeled, what it needs to be. We talked, and what we said was basically outside, let's just take those, the remainder money after our other expenses and split it. I thought we said split it across 3, but then different areas, and then when I started to look at what are the potential different areas, I actually, in my head, had 4. One of them being the Resource Center Board, one of them being GIS, one of them being the general pot of local authority grant requests, grant applications that might get approved, ENS, and then I put in a program reserve to build up some funding, partially for overruns, partially, it could be at any one point in time, cash flow kinds of situations or whatever across these different areas. It could be a number of things. So it was a fairly hefty reserve. Again, I did 10%. But I need you all's input on your recollection of the categories and what we want to cover, and then of course the amounts.
We'll start with Daryl. Go ahead.
So Lynn used to be my boss, and I've known her a long time, so I can rib her about this, about telling me to chime in and then continuing
to talk.
Anyway,
because he knows I'm a talker.
That's
Okay.
right. But that's okay, because you say good stuff. So on the Resource Center, just to give a little more information there, the 200,000 comes from the fact that's for one full-time FTE. We do have to pay more than you would normally pay in other types of organizations because we don't provide any benefits. It's up to the employee to purchase their own health insurance, do their own retirement savings, et cetera, et cetera. Plus the costs of travel and other things that would be related to having that full-time FTE. If we need more later, we can, we will approach the board with because this is going to have, if the board just chooses to support the Resource Center on an annual basis, then that's going to be an annual proposal or request from the Resource Center to the Enterprise Board. So we will let you know in future budget discussions whether that's needed. But we still have some money left over from the CPAP funds that we can operate off of as well if the 200,000 is not completely enough to cover all of our expenses. On the GIS statewide item, Lynn and I talked about what that means, and I think that kind of depends on what you, as the board, were looking at from the proposals that you received. The GIS project that's underway right now is to build a statewide PSAP boundary layer. That is not everything that we're going to need as a state to implement NextGen 911, so there's going to be more work that needs to be done after that. Additionally, some of the local agencies may need some additional funding to build their own local GIS data, which will be rolled up into a statewide GIS data set for NextGen 911. And the project that's underway right now does not include any money for ongoing maintenance. So those are the types of things that could be included in that, but it's entirely up to this board what you want to fund in terms of GIS based on the proposals that you received.
Thank you, Daryl. I'll throw my 2 cents in. Couple things for you, Lynn. The first one being the 911 Resource Center Board. Again, assuming we do move forward with that, I believe the request was 200 for the year. So the 8-month 133,000 wouldn't really apply. We would need the full 200,000 regardless of the timing. And then I would say for the GIS line, I would go, again, kind of to Daryl's point, I would go a little more generalized GIS support as opposed to specifically statewide study, so that we have some leeway as far as what it is we're supporting. And then the final thought I have for the ENS multi-language. Personally, I think a better program use from my perspective is language accessibility. Again, it gives us a lot more flexibility in what we support, whether that's ENS, whether that's 911 translation services. With the program being language accessibility, it could include ENS, but again, gives us more room to support the programs that come to us, that the agencies are looking for, not just ENS.
Okay. Others? Do you like those labeling changes?
Yes, thank you.
Okay. Did I miss anything as far as categories and then people's thoughts for sure on the amounts? The only reason one is different than the other is rounding, and I just wanted to keep the numbers clean. So somebody had to be shorted $1,000. And what I can do, since the personal services cost, we went down to 150,000, that creates kind of a gap here. I can plug that money back, spread across these different 8 efforts as well. I don't think I have the knowledge to really understand if these are appropriate amounts, if they should be the same, if they, if in scope and size there's really any material difference or not. So I just did it even 1/3. So, and if,
how do we need to kind of create some guidelines for the enterprise around, so I could easily see, for example, the language accessibility, that could go one of 2 ways. One, something that the enterprise could cover the cost of that would solve the problem statewide, or grants for individual authorities to resolve the issue there, because not every from the, and I can't remember where it came from, but I remember seeing an email. Actually, I think it came from the guy from
Reachwell's input.
Reachwell, yeah, that there are some authorities that don't meet the threshold. They don't have 2.5% or 2,000 people in their community that speak English less than well. So it may be something that makes more sense as a grant option, particularly because, Reachwell may not be the appropriate solution. And then we've got Everbridge, we've got Code Red, we've got various different service providers. And so that in my mind might change the math because, 56 individual solutions is going to cost something very different from one statewide solution.
So I think you're saying you prefer to make it a grant basis, not statewide?
No, there's no preference. It's a matter of what makes the most sense, right?
Okay.
And once we determine what makes the most sense,
Mhm.
that could very well change the budget allocation, right? Where we're going to need a little more money for the language accessibility thing in order to meet the need statewide if we're doing individual grants. And this is all hypothetical, right? And therefore we might have to funnel some away from GIS support and other things. I'm thinking out loud. And maybe it's something as simple as we kind of set this as the budget, and then we just kind of anticipate doing supplemental budgets, a couple times, especially in this first year once we're kind of figuring things out. And maybe we just do that, right? This is an excellent starting point, and thank you, Lynn, for doing this. And maybe we just say, yep, this looks great, keeping in mind that there's a lot we don't know.
Actually, Lynn, I would undo that change you just made with net expense. It's just a nitpick format.
Which I'm sorry, which one?
Row 24, net expense. I would keep the titles, programs, and net expense as subtitles under your line 8 category.
Oh.
It doesn't
so,
really,
in other
it doesn't
words,
really matter. Yeah, I just saw you
just move this one
reformatted it.
in.
Yeah,
I
it doesn't, it's really immaterial.
I can get rid of my
Andrew,
notes.
these are questions that probably all of us have been pondering
Yeah.
since we started thinking about this budget. And the problem is that they're questions that could potentially take a lot of effort and time to come to the, best feasible answers that in this time we don't have.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. And as I'm thinking about it more, I think particularly because I'm also thinking incorrectly that these are things that we need to, all of these need to get moved on right away. But like the language accessibility, we've got until July 2027, right, collectively to have a solution in place. So, okay, yeah, we've got 567, and if we need more, we make adjustments next year, or whatever that is. Like I think this is something where we can basically say, hey, we're just going to divvy these up a third, and a third, and then we've got reserves in the resource center. And then as we go, we just amend the budget, make adjustments. I think I was getting wrapped around the axle thinking that we needed to have everything figured out.
It's okay to go down that trail and then come back out of it during this process. At least y'all know me. I think that's okay. And if we determine that we are enabled to adopt the budget in total, we could maybe just add notes to the budget or a second document in support of the budget about how we've chosen based on new information to adjust how we spend things under the net expense total amount. Or increase, of course, we may, the way things were going, and Andrew, you and I talked, well, actually others as well, we talked about revenues may not come in as high.
Right. We don't know.
Because we're in our own authority budgets, we're seeing weakness in certain categories of revenues.
Yep.
And projecting flat or declines for next year. So 24 2.4 million may be optimistic, but
Yeah.
I,
Well,
I'm-
and
I
on voice lines, they're going down. I mean, even wireless is going down. We see it in our company and we're pretty consistent, I think, across the companies.
we're seeing a reduction in VoIP,
Right.
businesses trimming expenses, being cautious. So this looks really good, Lynn. Thank you for putting this together.
Yeah, no problem. And so what I can do, you know, if it's helpful, it sounds like we want to go with, do you want me to leave the 12-month? Do by 12 months?
I think it makes sense going forward. Like you said, this first one is going to be different just because it's our initial and we are probably only going to get 8 months worth. You know, the delay in the carriers submitting to the state, the delay in the state submitting to the 911 fund. We probably should only count on 8 months worth. I would say the only solid line item that we would know is if we sign that contract with the 911 Resources Board, it's going to be 200.
Right. So we're probably looking at about 600, a potential. No, because we would also not get the money to cover it. So really we would be looking at spending about 1.8 on the kind of on the 8-month No, yeah. Well, this would go up about 8.9 or so, or
I think
1.9.
no, I think that we could
here,
only
so-
count on the
Yeah.
potential for the 1.6. It would be a matter of taking it out of the reserves to kind of cover that
Cover, right.
essentially.
But this will, yeah.
I have a
But
side question.
this amount will get it set at the 3 cents.
Correct.
This
And
amount will be,
justifies why and what we're looking to do with it.
yeah.
Yes, Daryl.
Yeah, I really think we meant 10 months there, not 8 months, because
I would agree, because when I did my math too, I'm like, well, that wouldn't be starting in March.
that makes sense if there's 10 months in the year, but
But this is also 10 months, so let me.
But well, before you change all that, Lynn, so Daryl, correct me on this, the carriers, especially the postpaid traditional contracts are collecting after the fact.
Yep.
They have up to 2 months to submit to the PUC. And
So
then the
they
PUC has
collect-
up to 2 months.
right. So the enterprise fee will become effective as part of this 911 surcharge in January. So they will,
Right.
the customers will pay in January and remit that to the carriers. The carriers then have until the last day of the next month, which would be the end of February, to remit it to
So it's
the PUC, and then we will transfer it to you as soon as we get it. We will get it probably from and when I say to the PUC, I really mean to our custodial agent, the company that does the collection for us, which is a company called Roca Loeb. And we will get the money from them by the middle of March. So you will get the money in March. It may be closer to the end of March before you get it, but it'll be in March. So you could plan on 10 months, or if you want to say maybe 9 months,
9
because it'll be near the end of
9
March
months.
when you get it. That would be pretty accurate.
Mhm.
Okay, so let me do that, and then
And you'll still get the full 12 months. It's just that you'll be getting those last 2 or 3 months in 2027 before the new 911 enterprise fee starts.
Right.
It always runs about 2 to 3 months behind.
did I get it here? I want to be careful because these are NAs. So. Okay, I can fix that. All right. So what I could do, if it's helpful, is clean this up. And put a draft together. I didn't share it, but let me show you what I'm looking at or thinking about here. I think it's this one.
And I'm gonna have to drop off. I've got a 4 o'clock waiting in the other room. did we need to vote on this? Or are
That
we
was
gonna
going to be
skip
my
that?
next question. Pending and barring a formal adoption of a full budget, I would love to be able to tell the state, to tell the PUC our intention of creating a 3-cent enterprise fee.
Yeah.
I know they are related, but I don't think they are necessarily conditional upon one being before the other, cart before the horse. Kirsten, Daryl, anybody, please keep me honest on that. Matt, I see your hand up.
I believe the statute says a fee amount based on an adopted budget.
So this is Daryl. I don't recall the exact language from the statute. I do think it would be very helpful to have a rough budget, at least in the memo that you file in the 911 surcharge proceeding that backs up where you're coming up with the 3 cents.
Yeah, and that's what I was just looking at the one and again, I was just going to go back to the adjust for what our purposes are, but similar to the what got submitted for 988 and only structure ours according to what we have to do and what we're asking for. Their process is slightly different. But I think the memo, and I think we talked about this, Daryl, right? The memo would essentially look the same that could go over to the PUC. So I could draft that and clean up the budget for this next meeting, or if we wanted to have a special meeting, a separate meeting, an additional meeting, and see if that would be helpful. Do you want me to show you what theirs looked like? I can find it.
So sorry, I do have to drop off. What do y'all want to do? Do you want to?
So it sounds like the consensus is you don't want to formally adopt it today.
Okay.
I will say that our next scheduled is the 30th, and I am unavailable for that. So if we want to keep that date, Matt, you will be in charge.
Okay. I'm actually not opposed to adopting this today after this discussion under the circumstances, if Kirsten's okay with adopting it in total.
And I'm trying to find the language in the bill while she's looking for her mute.
sorry.
I'll
The
get that too.
fee and 911 enterprise fee in an amount to be established annually by the enterprise after consulting with the commission. So we also haven't consulted with the commission, I suppose.
Daryl's got his hand up.
Yeah, I think, at least in practice, consulting with the commission for the 988 board has always meant consulting with commission staff, so that the language is a little sloppy there. But I would consider what you're doing now, consulting with commission staff. What I do see that's relevant is says the amount of the 911 enterprise fee must be reasonably calculated based on the cost of the services provided by the enterprise and received by telephone service users. I think that by itself kind of indicates you need to have some justification in the memo as to where you came up with the 3 cents. And so I do think it would be best to have the budget included.
So just real quickly, if I can find my share button again with all my screens opened up here. I'm so sorry. Here we go.
Does the agenda, sorry, I'm trying to pull up the agenda to see if it says anything about adopting this.
It does not. It just says draft budget presentation.
Okay. I would feel more comfortable waiting to vote on this until we can put it on the agenda.
Sounds good.
Thanks for your patience, Andrew.
No
Thanks,
worries.
Andrew.
Thanks, everybody.
And here's a copy of the 988 A988 memorandum that went in, and the summary they include, and then they have the budget, and they give a little bit of of background. Of course, their background's a little different. So to me, it's essentially creating a similar type document like this. And I may need some help with some explanation on the different program categories, but I could put together a draft of something like this for our next meeting, along with cleaning up that other spreadsheet. Well, it would essentially be incorporated in here. So I could put together a draft of this for our review and edits for the next meeting, if that would be helpful.
I was actually going to ask you if, and the board, if a budget glossary would be a good idea, which is essentially the same thing, right? What does each line item mean? And is our intent to, what expenses are intended to be supported?
And that's where, I like that idea. That's where someone more knowledgeable and involved in these kinds of things than me would have to probably create those descriptions. But I'd be happy in terms of the general template and everything to pull something together.
Thank you. So bring it back to our next meeting as an agenda item with the proposed, I mean, at that point, do we call it a proposed budget, a budget outline?
Budget approval.
Budget
So
approval?
the processes I'm familiar with for local government, what we did today was got a presentation for the preliminary budget. The next step would be adoption of the final budget. You don't have to call it final.
It's just adoption of budget.
Adoption of a budget and rate setting?
Yeah.
So it would be 2026 budget.
Okay.
And I'll put that on the agenda.
Thank you. All right, any further discussion before we move on?
Thank you for doing that, Lynn.
Yes,
sure.
great job, Lynn. Thank you very
Yeah.
much.
Thank you. I don't think any accounting firms are going to hire me yet, though.
Good enough for government work? Is that what they said?
There we go.
This may be a little out of order, but I just want to say I think it's extremely exciting to see you guys get to this point. I'm really excited to see where it goes from here.
I'm pretty happy with this crew.
Yeah. And thank you for your help, Daryl, and your team. So.
All right. All right. Thank you again. Next up, if you want to stop sharing your screen, Lynn, thank you. Jennifer, I believe, was up for talking about DORA travel policies and thoughts around that for our board.
Well, what I did was bring my expert and boss to the meeting because he's more familiar with it than me. So I defer to Daryl.
The chair recognizes
Oh.
Daryl.
I did not know I was going to be on the hot seat for this.
You're right.
So-
I didn't tell you, but we did talk about it. So I know you
Yes.
have an answer.
Very vaguely, I think. If the question is whether or not you are, as board members, are subject to DORA's travel policy, I will probably need to ask someone specifically about that, and I was not prepared to do that today. My understanding is that the way the enterprise laws are written, and Kirsten may have some thoughts on this as well, you have some pretty exceptional flexibility on how you spend your funds as long as it's within what is allowed in the statute that creates the enterprise. But that being said, if we're expecting to have DORA process travel requests and travel reimbursements, then we'll probably need to follow their policy. But I can do some research on that and give you more information unless you had specific questions.
I think that fairly covers it. So in our bylaws, part of the compensation section was around potential reimbursement, actual travel expenses in the performance of duties as allowable under state statute and state fiscal guidelines. So I think that was kind of what we were looking for, making sure what those guidelines are, and then in the event we ever decided to utilize that function, what that process would look like.
Gotcha. Well, since the bylaws specifically say in accordance with state fiscal guidelines, then it would be following state travel policy. If the board would like, I'm not prepared to do it today, but if the board would like for the next meeting, I could prepare a presentation on the travel policy and what the process is.
That'd be great. Thank you. Jennifer.
And I will apologize for coming to the meeting unprepared. And I'm sorry, Daryl, I didn't mean to put you on the hot seat.
Yeah,
No problem.
All right. Thank
Somebody's
you.
got to keep me on my toes.
All right. Next up, Jolene, thank you for joining us. Looking for some background information about the state's 911 surcharge audit process, and if and how this enterprise may be able to assist our authorities if there was any opportunity there. Thank you, Jolene, for joining us.
Thanks for having me. I didn't prepare anything. I had anticipated just auditing the surcharge with the 911 surcharge, the enterprise fee, because it's what I already do. So if there's any additional things that you would like to add, and I could share a sample letter, because we asked for some very specific information. I think I shared it with you, Michael. But I was already going to ask for that information. If there was anything else that additional you wanted me to include or were interested in, I would be happy to do that at no cost to the enterprise whatsoever. Now, there is a process, and Daryl could probably speak to it better than I can, for trying to get a surcharge or an audit paid for from the state. Otherwise, governing bodies have authority, and I don't know about 911 Enterprise Authority, but to audit the surcharges themselves and pay for it themselves. So there's that, there's that option as well.
So, and I think that's where kind of the direction that we're looking for your input on. So let's say hypothetically an authority, Pitkin County, Eagle County, whoever came to us looking for, they are looking to have some form of audit on the surcharges that they receive. Is there an opportunity for us to assist them in some way, whether that's financially paying for an audit? What does that look like? What is that process?
Daryl, are you going to answer that?
Yes, I can.
Up on the screen. I'm like,
so, and I'm trying to pull up a copy of our rules right now. So there is a process in our rules. If a governing body wishes to audit a carrier, and typically it is a specific carrier at a time that they're auditing, rather than trying to audit all carriers at once, because that is a huge endeavor. Although there have been governing bodies that have done, I wouldn't call them audits. It's more like a survey to determine whether or not they're getting close to what they should be getting from a variety of different providers. Normally, when we do an audit, it's of a specific carrier at a time. A governing body can do an audit of a carrier at their own expense, but there is a process in our rules that has never been used. It's been in place for several years, but no governing body has ever taken advantage of it, where a governing body can petition the commission to do a audit of a carrier at the commission's expense, and the commission will pay for the audit basically using the 4% of these 911 surcharge funds that we're allowed to keep for our administrative costs. And essentially, we're just paying for Jolene's time, because that's really our only expense involved in an audit. And I'm looking for that rule right now. But that being the case, that doesn't, that since we'd be paying for it out of the 4% that we keep for administrative costs anyway, that would not require any money from the enterprise to pay for. I think the most obvious involvement of the enterprise, if the enterprise were involved in it at all, is if a governing body came to the enterprise and said, hey, we don't think this carrier is remitting properly to us, then you could inform us of that and we could then talk to that governing body. And although there's a petition process built into the rules, generally speaking, if a governing body comes to us and say, we think this provider is not remitting properly, I don't know that we would make them go through a petition process, because we have an ongoing list of providers that we're going to do audits on. Jolene created a truly randomized list, and we can bump people up in that, or companies up in that list, for an audit if there's any indication or information that we receive that indicates that they may be a good target for an audit. I hope that helps. It's a little fuzzy because we have this process in the rules that's frankly never been exercised.
That's great, thank you. And just to kind of round out if it is the governing body doing the audit at their expense, is that still through Dora, the PUC, and Jolene? Is that going to an outside company? What does that consist of?
No, they could do an audit in-house if they have the capacity to do that, or they could hire a firm to do the audit for them. They wouldn't be doing it through us if they're doing it at their own expense. But if they want us to do an audit for them, then they can either petition us or frankly just ask us, and we can bump that company up on the rotation.
Great, thank you. Does anybody else have additional questions? All right, great.
And I finally found the rule. If anybody is curious and you want to look at it later, it's Rule 2153 in the telecom rules, and it's 4 CCR 723-2-2153. And I'm sure you all caught that, but it'll be in the minutes.
I got it.
Great,
Well,
thank you both.
Numbers, Lynn.
No, I used to have to do that stuff. So,
Right.
Thank you very much. Really appreciate your time, Jolene and Daryl. Thank you very much.
We rely on Jolene a lot here locally. Thank you for that and this.
You're welcome.
All right. Next up is board comments. So I will start. I want to make sure everybody is aware and okay. I was going to bring this up at the last meeting. Unfortunately, again, I apologize. I wasn't able to make it and rescheduled to today. So there is the standing request of the 911 Advisory Task Force to include a standing agenda item of 911 Service Enterprise updates. I think it is a good idea to keep everybody apprised of what we're doing, in addition to these open meetings, of course. So unless there is any concern, I would like to continue keeping them updated and give them just high-level agenda updates at their meetings. If everybody's okay with that.
I think it's a great idea.
Agreed.
Anybody else for the good of the order? Yes, ma'am.
I found the language in the statute about the budget.
Okay.
I was wrong. It is not explicitly tied to the fee, right? 2911-108-8A, subsection 8A, shall oppose the fee and we talked about that earlier, consulting with staff must be reasonably based on the costs of services. In subsection 9B, Roman 1 and 2 shall submit an annual financial report. Report must include projected revenue and expenditures and proposed budget for the following fiscal year. That's what I was thinking of. So,
And that
I was
requirement
remembering wrong.
starts, and that requirement starts next year.
Correct.
It's on or before June 30th, 2026.
2026. Yep. So in my mind, I was thinking, okay, they want a budget. The fee would be based on the budget. So a little hard to do that the first year though. So thank you.
Thank you. Amy or Lynn, anything else to add?
I do not at this point.
Neither do I.
All right, next meeting. So our next scheduled meeting should be July 30th at 3 p.m. Again, I will not be available for that. I will be unconnected from the world. So as long as you guys are good with that, Matt will be in charge and I will listen to it in the video feed.
We'll volunteer you for lots of stuff.
What's that?
We will volunteer you for lots of stuff in your absence.
Absolutely.
Is
In
there
the
any
alternative-
chance, I have a question, is there any chance that we could be adopting a budget at the next meeting? Because I was wondering if, Michael, you would like to be present for that vote.
I would, of course, love to be present for any and all of these meetings. But again, having what happened at our canceling our last meeting, and especially with the timing, coming up with the being able to report to the PUC so that it can be incorporated into their proceedings. I am hesitant to delay things. So unless you want to move the meeting, I'm gone that whole week. So it would be a matter of either moving it up to next week or delaying it 1 week. But I would hate to just cancel it and wait for a month from now.
Can we meet
I was
next
thinking
week?
if we wanted to do the 6th, I'm free then too, if you did want to be present.
Just a moment.
I was going to suggest next Wednesday.
Oh, we could, let me see what do I have.
Next Wednesday, the 23rd.
Mm-hmm.
I'd be available then. I don't know if Andrew's available. I guess we'd have to find that out.
Let me text him.
And while he's doing
Somebody.
that, Sage, is the Zoom available on the 23rd?
I will check that
Okay.
right now. Just a moment.
And of course, you and Kirsten and anybody else.
Daryl,
It
will
does
that,
look like the
oh,
Zoom
sorry.
is available. Oh, sorry. My apologies.
That's okay. That's okay.
It does look
Daryl,
like
I
the
know
Zoom
you
is
wanted to
available.
present something too. Will that give you enough time?
Yeah, that'll be fine. It's just the travel policy, I think, is what I promised to present on.
Mhm.
Mhm.
I'm fine with the 23rd or the 6th. Doesn't bother me. It would be nice to get it done sooner
Yeah.
rather than
Agreed. I'd
waiting
like
tomorrow.
it sooner
That-
than later.
Yeah, that would help in case there's any revisions and we have to yet have another round, then we have time for that.
Sounds good to me. Just waiting on Andrew, right?
Yeah. Message sent. I feel like probably even if we don't hear from him, I think the wiser move might be to just schedule it for the 23rd because
Okay.
of time.
Let's schedule it for the 23rd at 3 p.m.
Great.
Awesome. Thank you, guys. I appreciate that. All right, then if there is nothing else, I guess we had been scheduling for 1 hour. Do we want to make that a 1 hour or 2 hour? Do we want to make it 2 and always count it short if we don't need it.
What do we have for the next agenda? Budget.
So we'll have the
Policy.
budget and the rate setting. We'll have the financial secretary position and the budget committee position
And the travel walkthrough.
and the travel with Daryl.
Or maybe 2 hours
Yeah.
and then,
Mhm.
yeah.
Okay. So July 23rd, 3 to 5.
Agreed.
Great.
Beautiful. All right. Unless there is anything else anybody would like to discuss, I will accept a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Thank you, Matt.
I second.
Second. Thank you, Amy. We are adjourned at 4:22.
Wonderful.
Great
Thank you,
meeting,
everybody.
everybody. Thank you very much.
Take care,
Yeah.
everyone.